visions of death. Am I insane? I will destroy you. Broken bones, torn to bits, torn to a fatal mess of flesh and blood. The evolution in my brain, shattered chords, still moving, rushing life, visions of blood, visions of death. Broken mind, lifeless mess.
Hey, this is Jim Sinon of the American hardcore death metal band SICKBAY, and you're listening to The Bloodshed with the Vampire on Metal Messiah Radio International. And I'd like to congratulate Metal Messiah Radio on its 13th anniversary. Hell yeah.
Jim, it's a great pleasure to have you here, and I want to welcome you to the Metal Bloodshed with a Vampire on Metal Messiah Radio International. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, man.
Jim, please present yourself and explain us who are all those who have to blame or thanks to have gotten you into metal.
I guess too many. Originally Black Sabbath. I was a kid, I heard Black Sabbath, and that put me down the road. And then I was a kid in the early 80s, Iron Maiden, Metallica, and then Slayer started coming out. And then when Obituary came out, that's where my brain goes, is straight to the death metal stuff. So all those bands kind of mixed together is what keeps me a metalhead.
Jim, I like to start this interview going back in time talking about this genre of death metal, which was built up from the musical structure of thrash metal and hardcore punk. Death metal emerged during the mid-1980s. Metal bands such as Slayer, Creator, Celtic Frost, and Venom were very important influences to create or to craft this genre. We talk about bands like Possess and Death, along with bands such as Obituary, Morgoth, Carcass, Pestilence, Entombed, Sepultura, Cannibal Corpse, Morbid Angel, Massacre, and also Necrophagia, Atheist, Deicide, Dismember, and yes, Autopsy, considered pioneers of this genre. I am sure that there are so many more names to be added to this list that I just mentioned. Jim, how was the metal scene, back in the days, like in the 80s, 90s, especially in your area of New York?
You know, that's what got me into it. I live in Poughkeepsie area. It's about an hour north of New York City. And back in the late 80s, early 90s, all the bands from hardcore to punk to metal to death, all the bands were coming through this area. So like every weekend there was a show and somebody was coming through. Plus all the New York bands, the local bands out of the city. If you wanted to go out, you went out and there was a death metal show, a thrash show, a hardcore show. I remember one of the first shows I went to, I was like 14 or 15 or something, and it was Anthrax and Celtic Frost opened for them. And that's Celtic Frost really blew me away. I was like, well, what the hell is this? You know, I think it was like the Among the Living tour or something. That's really what got me into the heavier stuff, you know.
That should have been a great show. It was only Anthrax and Celtic Frost.
I think Exodus also.
Wow.
It was a hell of a show. And it was the first time I saw a pit that violent. Like Anthrax's pit was insane. You know, there's people getting carted out on stretchers. And, you know, as a kid, this is fucking awesome. Like, holy shit, you know.
But tell me, how do you see the metal scene has evolved along the years together with the technology?
I think there's so many different, at the end of the day, it's all metal, but there's so many different like subgenres of metal that at some point it starts fusing itself back together. And I think that's kind of like a lot of the sounds of newer death metal or thrash metal bands today are fused with hardcore, with punk, with their thrash influences, just doom, Sabbath influences. So I think today death metal is almost finding another sound within itself.
But do you believe believe that the technology has been positive parts for the metal itself? I mean, talking with you as a musician.
As far as what aspect? As far as social media goes, or
Jim, things are done differently compared to 20 years ago. I mean, when you go recording, when producing music and all these things.
as far as we're pretty stripped down band, we're pretty basic. Like I have one amp, I don't use distortion pedals. You know, I have a Mesa Boogie triple rectifier. That's my sound. I don't have a lot of gadgets and a lot of electronic stuff. So like playing live or recording, I use the same stuff. We don't go crazy with the effects and stuff in the studio. The studio that we record at, Mike Yusufer is our producer, and he has an analog system. Everything's pretty stripped down. Like, you know, there's not a whole lot of effects on it, and I like it that way. I think some of the stuff sounds cool that's overproduced and, you know, kind of that industrial sound to some things, but at the end of the day, that's not totally my cup of tea. I like just raw, heavy, sludgy metal. I think that's what comes through. I also like to be able to, whatever we record, I like to be able to play live and have it sound the same.
Jim, initially you formed SICKBAY between the year 2000 and 2004 out of the twisted morass of the Hudson Valley scene, with a hardcore fueled death metal band bringing a new brand of hate to this genre. What motivated you to have started this band, and how about the band name?
We were trying to think of band names, and we were all coming up with different stuff, and SICKBAY kind of popped in my head and it stuck. And I was like, I don't know about that. And then I'd keep coming up with more band names. I'd keep coming back to SICKBAY, and I said, well, I can't get rid of this name. So that's how it started. The original drummer in the band and I were in a thrash metal band, and we kept wanting to get heavier. The band name was Carve, and we kept wanting to get heavier. The other guys in the band were happy with where it was. So that band kind of fell apart, and the drummer and I started SICKBAY with the intent of being as heavy as we could be. You know, and I think the hardcore to death metal kind of come infused, just like I was saying earlier about the area we live in. You know, just all the different influences coming through. It gets in there. It gets in your head, and influences the way you write stuff.
Who were the guys that you formed the band with? Yes, please present us the current band lineup.
Sure. So originally it was Nick Nazak on drums, Tom Peluso on vocals and bass, myself, Jim Sinon on guitars, and we had an additional guitar player, John Mazurowski, who also did vocals. After 2004, the drummer left. We had a drummer for a little while, and then it kind of fell apart.
So that's the guy that you have started the band with. But nowadays, who are the band members together with you?
So nowadays is Tom Merando is the drummer, Tommy Peluso is singer and bass player, and myself. We're a three-piece.
Okay, going back in time, the band has recorded a demo which was released in 2003, while the band was put to an end in 2004. Why did you decide to put a stop to the band, and what have you guys been doing for the last 12 years?
Yeah, the drummer left, decided to leave the band back then. We were all in different bands doing different things. I had actually moved out of the area that I live in now for a while, so we kind of just drifted apart doing our own things. And then in 2016 is when we decided, I had moved back in the area, and me and Tommy got talking, and we were like, all right, let's do this again.
Talking about this demo, I see that you guys re-released this demo back this year.
Yeah, we had recorded our last album and released that in October of 2020. And then with no shows going on, nothing happening, we decided, we had that demo kicking around for years, and we decided, well, let's release it. Let's put it out on Spotify. The recordings aren't like quality great, but we figured, screw it, it's a demo. You know, fuck it, let's just put it out. We got nothing else to do, sitting around quarantined in our houses. So that's why we released that again.
What are the changes on the 2021 demo versus the 2003?
Different drummer, and the 2003 we had an additional guitar player.
Yeah, but have you perfect anything? I mean, the sound is better, the recording is better, I believe. And
right. We haven't played those songs since 2004. When we started again, we just started writing all new songs. So, and we've kind of been thinking about maybe we'd slip some of those old songs into the sets nowadays. And we just figured with a new drummer, when we restarted, we would just start with new songs. He actually likes the old stuff, so he's the one who keeps saying, we need to get, you know, a couple of these songs in our set now, you know, which is cool. It's cool that stuff that we wrote in 2000 and stuff that we've written in 2018, 19, it's very similar.
When we talk about death metal, besides Florida being the state with its own legacy of brutality, New York is also known for its own style of death metal with bands that calls New York their home. I'm talking about Suffocation, Immolation, Mortician, Incantation, which we had a great honor to talk to John McEntee. We interviewed John last year for the new album. Yes, Skinless, Internal Bleeding, and not to forget the Hudson Valley SICKBAY has released their full-length album, Dissonance, on August August 8, 2019, independently. What do you most remember of this album, Jim? How was this being accepted by the fans? And have you done a lot of shows in support of this album?
Of Dissonance, yes. We released that album and we actually did a ton of shows during our releasing it, and then through the summer of 2019 and winter of 2019, we actually got a lot of response from that album. Our Spotify plays went through the roof, and we sold a lot of copies, sold a lot of merch. We were on kind of a real good roll, and we were getting ready to record Death's Cold Grip in 2020. It's kind of when the pandemic happened, and we had a few more shows booked, and then we had studio time booked. So our whole plan was to kind of ride that momentum into the next album, and then this shit happened, and that kind of pulled the plug on everything. So we decided to go ahead and record as soon as the studio opened back up. We said, well, we can't do shows, but at least let's record. Let's get this out.
Talking about these shows, have you guys been touring throughout North America? Have you been to Europe for promotion of this?
No.
You guys have only been around in the States?
Yeah, just in the States.
Talking about great albums, and once again, I must say, in 2020 and then 2021, yes, again, I believe, Jim, that these years, there was no show, this COVID and everything, but I still believe these years has brought great, very great albums out. Since there was no show, there was no festival, as you were saying, and you guys are home, what to do? We keep writing, and we have time to write good materials, good stuff, doing good music, good recording. That's why these years are brought out so far great, outstanding albums of this time. Yes, one of them was also released last October 9, 2020 by SICKBAY. Yes, Jim, are you in search for a record label since this album, if I'm not wrong, has been released independently, or you just prefer to stay like this, independent?
We were kind of happy with staying like this. We've actually just recorded an EP, and we're actually talking to a few labels just to see if something could happen. If nothing happens, we're happy to stay independent, and then we'll self-release it, but we'll see.
Okay, in promotion of Death's Cold Grip, you guys have released a video that was on 1st of October, go back 2020, for the track Left to Mourn, and followed by a video that you guys have done recently where I wrote, filmed by director Mr. Matthew of New York metal scene, and I want to give a shout out to DJ Zepp, who also worked with us. Mr. Matthew, how was the film shooting gone and your experience working with Matthew?
Oh, we had a great time working with Matt. When Death's Cold Grip was released, he had me on his radio show. We kind of stayed in touch and kind of talked about stuff, and so I hit him up when we were thinking about recording the video and said, hey, you interested in doing this? And he said, hell yeah. We had a couple other things going too. We also did a live feed show with Malignancy and with Telic Voven, and Matt, New York City metal scene, filmed that also. So through that whole process, we got talking. I was like, look, I want to do this video. I want to do, live shots, and I also want to do some outside. Matt was like, oh, I got some cool ideas. Let's do it. So we did. And I think we filmed it in March of this year. We had a great time. We found an abandoned insane asylum in New York, and we agreed that we would go there and do the filming. And we really had a good time, and it really came out awesome. He did a great job with everything.
You have to laugh because Macho always talk about that creepy place.
Yeah, it was creepy. It was crazy. And when we went there, then the cops came. We shot however much footage. We climbed way up in top of this part of this abandoned building, and he was going to take more video footage up there. When we got up on top, we saw the cops coming. So we were like, oh shit, we got to get out of here, because it's there's fences all around it. It says no trespassing and all that.
Okay.
So we were going to do a little more shooting, but we stopped because the cops showed up. So we were like, let's get the hell out of here.
Even the vultures came.
Yeah, the vultures came. Yeah, it was very cool. It was cool. We had a good time. And Matt did a great job through the whole process. And that show that we did with Malignancy and Telic Voven, that was, for not playing in so long and not being able to play live, that was like the next best thing. So it was kind of cool to have all three bands together. We hung out, we filmed, we each did our sets, filmed it all together, and it was like half a show, So there was no crowd, there was nobody there, but at least it was something to do through the pandemic.
The end is begun. The blackness overcomes. Silence turns
If you don't mind, Jim, tell us about the Stay at Home Fest in support of Music Cares and the 80 Fund.
Frank Godlove Metal Injection through the pandemic started the Stay at Home Fest, and what that was, once a month they were having, you would submit a set of 15 minutes or 10 minutes, I'm sorry, and then he put it all together and once a month would put this fest up. And somebody that we work with that does our advertising and stuff said, "Hey Jim, you want me to submit an application for you guys to Metal Injection for this Stay at Home Fest?" So I said, "Yeah, hell yeah." So he called me back and he said, "Hey, they accepted it. So, you have to go film 10 minutes. You have to go to a studio or somewhere, however you want to do it, film it, and then it'll air." It wound up being a really cool deal. So we filmed it. It was a 10-minute set. And the last Stay at Home Festival that they did in June, we were on that. And it was pretty cool. It was definitely a cool experience. And we had a ton of promotion through Metal Injection. They did a great job with the whole thing. And the whole thing was set up as a benefit. Any money that they raised through the whole process went to charity. It was a good deal to be involved in.
Jim, to those that has not buy this great new album as yet, that's called Grip, how would you describe it, this album, for them to make them see that they must have this album in their collection?
It's heavy. It's a very heavy album. I never know what we sound like exactly. We have such a drastic change in tempos. We have very fast parts, very slow, heavy parts. There's some hardcore-ish moshing parts. It's kind of like all that shit just shoved into one song. At the end of the day, even fast parts, slow, it's all very heavy. We're tuned down, sludgy band, and vocals are angry. The new EP, I think because of the quarantine, especially, I think we had a lot of anger, so it came through in the 4 songs that we just recorded. It's very dark, very heavy, very angry.
Okay, talking about this album still, that called Grip, an album with 9 tracks, 28 minutes, 30 seconds of pure hardcore death metal coming out of the Hudson Valley, New York. The album was recorded, produced, mixed, and mastered by Mike Ossifer at Beacon Soundworks. First of all, how was the writing process gone, and how long were you guys busy doing so?
We wrote 7 of the songs prior to the pandemic happening, and we changed one of the songs and we wrote 2 more during quarantine, which was kind of weird because we didn't have the technology to kind of do it easily. So we were using our cell phones. We were at home. Joe would record drums on his cell phone, send it to me. I would record, guitar tracks on the cell phone, send it to him. So somehow we managed to write a couple songs that way. We went into the studio. By the time we played them together was when we recorded them. Into Beacon Soundworks, Mike Yusufer is a great recording engineer, great producer.
How was your experience there, recording with Mike and, not to talk about the mix and master?
Yeah, it was a great experience. This time, like previous recordings that we had done, we were kind of in and out doing shows. So we would go into the studio, we'd set up, we'd record a song, record a couple songs, do some drum tracks, but then we'd pack all our shit up because we'd have a show that weekend, And so the whole process was extended. Whereas this time during the quarantine, we couldn't play out. We had our stuff set up. We kind of went in, we did our thing. It was a lot more relaxing. We had a good time. We just hung out, bullshitted, laid down the tracks. It's a good atmosphere in his studio. We had a really good time recording the last 2 times.
So you guys are very satisfied with the final work done by Mike.
Yeah, definitely. He does a great job on all aspects. When we're setting up, he takes the time to get our sounds correct, make sure that everything is set up right, recording right, so that when we actually record, he doesn't have to do a lot of work producing it either. It's kind of like we're a raw band, so what we sound like is kind of what we want to be on the recordings, and he grabs that perfectly.
Okay, to continue with this interview, even as the coronavirus pandemic rages on, SICKBAY continues to write and create new music. The band has stayed true to their goal of getting ever heavier, and their last composition promised to deliver on their self-same mayhem with a career that spans over 3 decades, I must say. SICKBAY are a story of a group of devout metalheads, grit and determination, and they prove that hard work not only pays off but leads to demanded music too. As they press forward, the only question remains: will you join into the fray? To all the metalheads out there, if you don't know the band SICKBAY, please check this band out. I'm sure they deserve for you to give them a chance. At least check the band out on YouTube if you don't have the albums. They have great catalog. I mean, talking about the 2003 demos, by the way, you can get it now, 2021 demo. But the EP, Bound of Tragedy, also the full-length album, Dissonance, and That Cold Grip, full-length 2020. Jim, concluding this great interview, what are the band plans for the rest of the year, and what are their schedule for 2022? What the show is about? Are you guys working on a new album?
So we just finished recording a 4-song EP called Brutal Existence. It's very heavy. It's heavier, darker than our previous. We finished recording it probably about 2 weeks ago. It's being mixed and mastered right now, and we hope to release it sometime in the pretty near future. That's our first plan for this year. We've just played our first shows in Delaware and in Philly. Our next show is coming up. We're playing a show in September in the Hudson Valley in New York. We're playing in October. We're playing a show in Massachusetts and in Brooklyn. And we do have a show in Poughkeepsie at the Chance Theater also in October. So we have a lot of stuff is brewing that we're kind of seeing how some venues right now are pulling back going towards the beginning of the year. I think they're slowing down a little bit with booking shows, trying to see what's going to happen, how the pandemic, all the numbers kind of going back up. We had this initial push of scheduling stuff, and now I guess we'll wait and see what happens.
Going back to your album released 2020, I must say what a great album cover artwork. Tell us, please, who's responsible for this cover artwork?
Yeah, thank you. We have a friend. He's a guy that actually I went to high school with years ago, a drummer in a lot of different bands, and he's a tattoo artist. He did our 2019 cover for Dissonance, and he did our 2020 cover for Death Cold Grip. He actually lives in Hawaii right now, and he just has that underground kind of feel with his artwork. We've known him forever, so he's an awesome guy, and happy to have him do it. Not only part of the scene, part of our community, and he does killer work. So
his name?
His name's Kevin Rivers. I left that part out.
How do you guys do it? I mean, you send him the music and you tell him what you want to get.
Yeah, so I tell him, I send him the music and I say, hey, this is kind of, usually I'll tell him, look, I have this idea and I'd like you to do this and this and this. And then he'll do something completely different. It's a lot cooler than I came up with. So it works out well. He's got a great ideas for that kind of stuff.
So even though you go opposite way, but you always approve.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. Because, it's awesome. What he come up with is cool. Like I saw it and I was like, wow, this is nothing what I said, but it's fucking awesome. So let's roll with it, I'm not always right. That's one thing I definitely know.
Jim, for those that still want to buy this album, since you guys have released it independently, in what format are this album available?
It's available in digital download and actual CD. We have a merch site on Bandcamp. SICKBAY1.bandcamp.com is our merch site. And we have t-shirts. We have all of our recordings on CD and also have them digitally to buy. So all our stuff is kind of there. And of course, we're on Spotify, YouTube, Amazon Music. We're kind of all over the place. If you search SICKBAY, well, sometimes Star Trek stuff comes up. So that wasn't well planned, but...
Yeah, you have to put SICKBAY Band.
Yeah, SICKBAY Band, and it'll pop up.
Yeah, I believe that like in Europe, that some shows already started back, even some festivals already started, and even though in a very small amount and with restriction. But how are things there in the States? I see that many bands are starting touring already.
Yes, everything kind of like popped off quick. So like all of a sudden, like August, September, everybody was like, okay, we're booking and let's go. So like a lot of bands, clubs, venues, everybody just started booking shows, tours. So August has been very busy. Like Deicide is out on the road. Internal Bleeding is actually with Deicide right now, and Cataclysm. A band from our area, Hatebreed, they're actually out on the road right now. So a lot of these big tours have popped off and went, and a lot of the smaller venues have opened also. So I think everybody kind of jumped at it, and now they've started putting restrictions as far as vaccine restrictions, like in New York City on shows. I know in Philadelphia they're putting mask restrictions on indoor spaces. So now everything that was starting to go full bore has kind of slowed back a little bit. Now as the restrictions are starting to come, clubs are starting to say, whoa, wait a minute, we don't know what's coming next.
Yeah.
It was kind of like a big tease that we were ready just to jump right back into it. Yeah. And I don't think they're going to completely stop doing things, but I think they've slowed the pace down a little bit. But I'm hopeful that, people will be responsible going to shows and different things, and they won't stop it.
But do you think that there's a possibility that they will control who's vaccinated or not?
New York City is, New York City right now, if you don't have a vaccination card, you can't get into restaurants, you can't get into venues. I don't know if other cities are going to, follow suit with that or what's going to happen. So that's kind of the unknown that kind of has slowed things down a little bit, just because we had a show booked for September in Brooklyn and it was an indoor venue. And then this mask mandate came out. So we actually moved it to an outdoor venue in Brooklyn in October because the club reached out to me and said, hey, I don't want to cancel this, but I really don't want to have it inside the extra security, all the craziness that will go along with it. Can we move it to an outside venue? So I said, yeah, let's find a way to make it work. I don't want to cancel the show. So that's how our Brooklyn date got rescheduled for an outside venue. So it's kind of weird because nobody knows what's going to happen next or what, if other cities are going to start with this kind of thing or if it's just New York, how long it's going to last. It's, the unknown is a bitch,
Suddenly start like bam with all these bands going back on the road. And it's sad to hear, like you just said, that they are slowing them down now.
Yeah. There's a lot that goes into it, especially for the larger bands. There's a lot that goes into their tour as far as merch and booking. And there's so many things involved that if they start having shows canceled or restricted, I understand why, they're starting to slow down a bit, but everybody's tired of it. Everybody's ready to get back at it, so it's like, it's a strange time, that's for sure.
I supposed to have an interview with Mauricio from Cataclysm for XDO, but, I can't get hold of him. He always postponed because he's busy on tour.
Right. They're on the road. That tour started, I think, the first week in August, and I think it ends the first week in September, I want to say. But I've seen a lot of footage from that tour. It's been a crazy tour. I know that some of the guys in Eternal Bleeding, so I've seen a lot of shots of them playing, and the show's been insane. Like, that's the crappy part, too, is you want the energy to keep going. Everybody's been pent up, everybody's frustrated, everybody's broke, everybody's ready to get back at it, and you can see that in these tours that are happening right now.
And I just talked to Jared Klein from Rivers of Night, and he told me, they're going on tour as well this September 3rd, a long tour.
Right. I saw who are they touring with?
They're touring with different bands. Let me see again. The thing is, Jim, they have two tours settled. The one in North America with Black Dahlia Murder and After the Burial with Carnifex.
That's going to be a sick tour, too.
Yeah. And then in November, they move into Europe with Black Crown Initiate and to the Grave.
Very cool.
Yeah. So I was very lucky to get Jared, before they leave.
Right. Definitely.
Yeah, I wish you all the best for all you have planned for the rest of 2021, what you have planned for 2022, what you have planned with this great new EP. I can't wait to hear from you again. And I can't wait to hear this new material. But in the meantime, I want to thank you very, very much. But before I'm going to hand you the microphone on Metal Messiah Radio for you to thank whomever you want to thank.
Well, I want to thank you for having us to begin with. I always love talking metal. So anytime I can get onto anything and talk about metal, it makes my day. And I definitely want to thank DJ Matt.
Yeah, I like to thank Matt, DJ Zap. Thank you very much for get me in touch with Jim.
And he supported us in every way that you could be supported. So he's an awesome dude. We have a lot to thank him for.
I think you're going to be also there with his first year celebration here with us on Metal Messiah Radio.
Yes. Yep. He reached out to me, asked me. Yep.
Yeah, that's going to be a big celebration, plus his birthday, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. We'll have to get him liquored up or something. So, thank Metal Messiah Radio. The support's been awesome playing our songs. And I'd like to thank everybody that listens. Some of the shows on Metal Messiah, if I have time, I'll jump in the chat room, and it's always awesome. People hanging out in the chat room. I want to thank anybody who's bought or listened to our songs or albums. You guys fucking rule. And look forward to seeing everybody back out there.
Jim, I always tell the bands that I will meet them. Always when I go to Europe, I go to festivals, but I think it's time for me to change the direction and go over to the States.
Yeah.
It's been so long that I haven't been to the States, but it's time to go to New York or to get to know California as well. I want to go. Yeah, but it's going to be great for me to return back to the USA. Great friends I have there. And, for many, many years, and especially, as you know, Metal Messiah Radio, that's that's why we say international, because we have DJs stationed all over the world that spins the best music for you, that give the best interviews. We work with the best bands, the best labels, the underground bands, labels. We go to all the festivals around the world. And so I'm stationed here in Aruba. And even though we are Dutch, I like to say, and again, and there's been since I was a kid and long before, that Aruba is more Americanized. Here, 90% of our tourists is Americans. And there are all the stores, all the fast food and everything, Americans are here.
Right.
So Aruba, even though we are Dutch, but we are a big part of us is American as well. Great place. You might think, you have to come and visit us sometimes.
That would be awesome. A couple times we talked about like Aruba. Like I've never been there, but people say, oh, you got to go to Aruba. It's great.
And talking about Aruba, that's why I was mentioning that since we are not always go to Europe because that. But yes, I believe it's time to return back home, USA.
That's the great thing about the internet. I mean, so like with technology, sometimes it's a pain in the ass in some ways, but I mean, it's great that it kind of shrinks the globe a little bit. You could be there in Aruba, I could be here in New York, and it don't matter. It don't matter what. You can be right next door. It's the same thing.
Once again, Jim, I want to thank you very, very much. And please say hi to the rest of the band member for me.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. It definitely will.
Once again, Jim, thank you very much for have accept this interview. I wish you all the best, being on the road. Yeah, without anything else to say, like I always say, metal on. Bye-bye.
All right, thanks, bro.